Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Friday Night Live from the Cloudy Sky Fantasy Football Show. As we reach halfway through the overhaul period, we're going to have a look at some data to see what we can learn from what we've seen in the first 7 weeks of the season. I put some stuff out free on Patreon earlier this week, which is from the Transfer Planner. That was a dive through all of the overall charts that we're going to have a look in more detail today, and we're going to split it down by position. Going to look at the strikers first and then move back through midfield and to defence and finish up with the goalkeepers to see who's been scoring, how they're doing on points per 90, who's looking good on points per million, who's doing well on tier points. Yeah, so let's have a look. Then next week we'll be back with Friday Night Live to have a look at an overhaul team, probably 2 or 3 depending on who people want to go with out of the bigger hitters. But this week this is sort of going to set the scene. So let's have a look, and we're going to start off with the strikers. And just for a bit of balance, this is from the transfer planner that you can see here, and all I've done here is split this down, so we're only looking at strikers for now. Then we're going to come back to this section and then split it down by the other positions. Starting at game week 1, we've got finish at game week 38. Well, you can put here game week 8, it doesn't really matter. And we've got all of the values in. So every player that's a striker, we're going to be looking really at the top 25. So this is how it looks for strikers. And no surprise to see Erling Haaland way out at the top. What is more of a surprise is how far ahead he is. So if we look at the top score in there is Haaland with 76, so nearly 10 points, well, it's over 10 points per week, nearly 11 points per match played. And in 25th position is Muniz, who's only got 16. So that's a huge difference between top and bottom there of 60 points. So Haaland's got over twice as many points as the next best, which is a tie between Jarrod Bowen and João Pedro. And then we've got 2 more in sort of joint 4th, which is Mo Salah and Voltemade. And then we've got Gakpo, Richarlison, Ekitike, Gyökeres, Mateta and Isidore, all sort of between 31 and 34. Sesko at 27. Then the low 20s, Strand Larsen, Thiago, Evan Nielsen, Marlon, Foster and Tell. And then high teens, Beto, Calvert-Lewin, Dango, Okafor, Cunha, Hichan and Muniz. And if we look at points per 90, obviously Haaland's going to be at the top, so nearly 11.5 points per 90 minutes. But we've got some others here who are sort of pointing their heads above the parapet for that haven't played as much. So Voltemade, he's in 5th position, but nearly 8 points per 90. Ekitike, 7.7, and then Marlon there at 8.57. Now, the reason why these guys are in there is they've not played as many games. Obviously, Ekitike has been rotated with Isak. He also got sent off, so he couldn't play one of the matches. Marlon hasn't started every game for Aston Villa. In fact, I don't think he started very many at all. And obviously, Voltemade wasn't in the Newcastle side at the start of the season. He was bought as a replacement for Isak. Now, guessing these guys' minutes as we move on is obviously a little more tricky. But if they do tend to play, and there's no reason to think that Voltemade won't, because Wissa is going to be injured until at least after the next international break, from what we've been led to believe. then there's every reason why he wouldn't be moving up the ranks next time round when we have a look at this. Ekitike, a little more difficult. Is he going to play regularly for Liverpool? We're not quite sure. And their fixtures moving on through sort of game weeks 10 through 13 in Cloud. They're not particularly appealing. And they do improve afterwards, but are we going to stick someone like that in the side for Overhaul? Not quite sure. And then Marlin, I mean, Villa are sort of a case of their own with Emery in charge. You're never really sure what's going to happen, what isn't. So we have a look there at Salah. He's sitting there in 4th position for total points. Let's have a look here and see how many. He had 35 total points, and that's a bad season. But he's still sitting in, well, near enough second place, really. So Bowen is sitting there in joint second, and West Ham, second bottom of the league. They've only scored 6 goals. So it's not necessarily about how the team's doing, it's how the players doing. You can say the same for Liverpool. They've had a bad week, 3 away defeats, Palace, Galatasaray and Chelsea. 2 of those last minute. Could have easily hung on, could have won the games maybe. It's all in the narrative. Playing badly, Salah's out of form. He's still got 35 points, and Liverpool have still scored 13 goals. Only Arsenal have scored more. Oh, sorry, City have as well. So Arsenal 14, Liverpool 13, Tottenham 13, Bournemouth 11, City on 15, Palace on 9, and Chelsea on 13. That's your top 7 in the league. So let's have a look at points per million. And again, we see here Haaland way out of the top, 6.44, even though it's like really expensive. And then we have the likes of Pedro, Walter Made, and Isidore. So Pedro there at 4.09, Walter Made 4.22, and Isidore 4.31. So this game, you need to have the top point scorers, but you've also got to try and maximise your budget to get the best 11 scorers all told. Now, if you're going to spend your money on Haaland, Salah and Isak, you're not going to have much left for anywhere else. But you get a couple of these cheaper guys in, like Pedro, Walter Made, Isidore. I mean, I don't know the price of Isidore off the top of my head, but I imagine it's very cheap. So let's have a quick look here, 7.2. Which, yeah, it is cheap. And we'll have a look at tiers. Just see who's doing better on tier. So obviously Haaland at the top. Then we see Mateta, 11 shots on target, but he's not troubling much on the scorers. Was he even on? He wasn't even on the top, was he? Oh, there he is on 33. So, and he's a reasonably priced player as well. So he's 10.9 because he had a good season last year. He needs more goals, really. What's he got? 2 goals this season? Yep, 10 for goals. So, yeah. So, Bowen, I think he's one, when we have a look at the fixtures later on, he's going to be one that is going to be high up due to the fact that West Ham have got 2 single game days. Sesko, not played all that much, only just getting in the team. I mean, Cunha's ahead of him, but he's been dropped now, so... Right, let's move this back. We're going to have a look at some midfielders. But just before we do, so Salah, he's got 35 points, 2 goals, 2 assists. He's got 7 starts, so that's 14 points, which means he's got 5 shot tiers, I imagine. Yeah, there we go. Shot tiers for Salah is 5. Right, let's move this to midfielders. So with the midfielders, we have Semenyo at the top. He's got 69 points. Caicedo in second with 54. Then Anthony and Enzo, high 40s, 49, 48. Low 40s for Kudos and Ndai. And then we've got high 30s, Anderson, Gravenberch, Grealish, Polinia, Rice. Low 30s, Longstaff, Paquetá, Sarr, Fernandez, Tielemans, Tonali, Garner, Reinders, Mbuemo and Minter. Then high 20s, Iwobi, Sessegnon, Cullen and Doku. So just to have a look at how some of these players are scoring their points for midfielders. Got the top 15 listed there. So Semenyo, 6 goals, 3 assists. Caicedo, 3 goals, no assists. Anthony, 4 goals, 1 assist. Enzo, 3 goals, 1 assist. Kudos, 1 goal, 5 assists. And Dye, 3 goals, 1 assist. Elliot Anderson hasn't scored, only 1 assist. But he's got numerous tier points, as we'll see. Gravenberch, 2 goals, 1 assist. Grealish, 1 goal, 2 assists. Palhinha, 2 goals, no assists. Rice, a goal and an assist. Sorry, a goal and 2 assists. Longstaff, a goal and an assist. Paquetá, 2 goals, probably 2 penalties, no assists. Sarr, 3 goals, 1 assist. And Bruno Fernandes, there in 15th. He has 2 goals, no assists. And as we know, he also has minus 4 points for 2 missed penalties. Just to note, if he'd have scored one of those, he'd have moved up into the top 7 for midfielders. And if he'd have scored them both, he would have been joint 4th. So we have a look at players by points per 90. Now you can see Tielemans there is the outlier. He's been injured but did score twice early on when he was fit. So he is 13 points per 90 there, which is massive. I doubt he could keep that on, but if he gets himself fit and Villa improve, they have improved in the last couple of weeks. If he gets himself fit and in the side, I mean, he might be on penalties for them, knowing their recent record is not great. But yeah, everybody else is not really an outlier as such. Semenyo is obviously at the top. He scored the most. I suppose the likes of Sarr pointing his nose ahead of Paquetá and Fernandes because he's cheaper. And then down at the bottom, you've got Doku, but sort of did well and dropped away. It wasn't in the side last week. So now if we have a look at points per million, again, we can see at the top there, it's the guys that are at the top of the charts, really. Semenyo, Caicedo and Anthony. None of them are overly expensive. You've got Enzo's a little more expensive and not done as much, but with Palmer being out injured, is Enzo somebody that's going to be looking to get in our teams? Quite possibly. And if we look at the tier points, this is where it does become a little more interesting for midfielders. You can see Caicedo and Anderson out the top, so 23 and 22 respectively. So Caicedo has got 43% of his points through tiers, whereas Anderson has got 59%. But is Caicedo's 3 screamers in 7 weeks, is that sustainable? Not really sure it is. And then Enzo, he's at the other end of the scale, so he's only got 14 tier points, which is 29%, which means he's got 71% of his points in other ways of scoring. As we saw, he had goals and assists, 3 goals, 1 assist. So goes to show that you need, as we said at the back end of last season, you need both. You've got to have guys that are scoring goals or assists, and those that can top it up with tier points. Great. And as we see with the defenders in a minute, much will be the same there. So let's have a look at that. We just move back and we're going to click this down to defenders. And then we'll have a look at the chart here. So Gahey is at the top with 51. Then we have Gabriel 48, Calafiori 47, Mitchell 47. Then the mid to low 40s, Munoz, Chalobah, Romero and Senesi. High 30s, Lacroix, Saliba, Byrne, Alderete, Ruben Dias. And low 30s, Cash, Livramento, Richards, Cucurella, Hume, Keane, Rodon, Timber and Van der Ven. Then high 20s, Konza, Mateus Nunes and Konate. And something to note there, so the difference between the highest scoring and the lowest scoring of these 25 is now down to only 23 difference. 51 at the top, 28 at the bottom. So you're not getting a marked difference between the lowest and the highest scorers as you are in the midfield and attacking positions. Other thing to note for this screen on defenders, we can see we've got 5 Palace defenders in here. They've played well, and they do play 5 at the back. There's 4 Arsenal defenders, again, best defence in the league, and at least for the majority of games they've kept a solid back 4, with Timber, Saliba, Gabriel and Calafiore. I think they've all played at least 6 of the 7. And then we have 5 teams who are double represented there, with Newcastle, Tottenham, Villa, Man City and Sunderland. So with defenders, it seems to be pick your defence, and then you can either double or triple up on some of them. Obviously, money depending, and formation, and as we will see later on, fixtures as well. So let's have a look at the points per 90. So those that are sticking ahead are Calafiore at 8. We have Chalobah at 8.3 and Saliba at 8.56. A bit further down the bottom is Nunes at 7.79. And as we suggested, Calafiore and Saliba both missed a game for Arsenal. Chalobah missed one for Chelsea through being sent off. And Matheus Nunes didn't start for Manchester City. We'll have a look at the tier points. So at the top we have Mitchell, 14 tiers. That's based across tackles and shots. He has 30% of his points through tiers. A bit further down, Saliba in 4th place. He has 13 tier points. His are split through tackles, passes, and he has 33%. Gahey, who is sitting in 2nd place, he has 25% of his points through tiers, and his are split through tackles, passes and shots. And a bit further down the list, we can see Tussin. He has 11 tier points, and he doesn't have any other points apart from tier points. So if he can get himself back into the Chelsea side, regular starter, and then keep some clean sheets, I imagine he'll do quite well as well. And then finally, we'll move this to goalkeepers. And click across to the chart. So Pope at the top there with 53. Then we've got Roofs 47 and Raya 44. Then we've got some in the high 30s. We've got Henderson and Petrovic. Mid 30s Pickford. Low 30s Verbruggen and Dubravka. High 20s Sanchez, Becker and Kelleher. Then low 20s Leno and Donnarumma. And then there's a few more at the high teens. A bit more difficult with keepers because we're not quite sure. Well, you won't get 25 for a start. Some have already changed. So Donnarumma has come in. Becker is obviously injured now. He's not going to play until after the next international break. Leeds have chopped and changed keepers. So have Aston Villa. So did West Ham. So have Wolves. So, yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but we can see there at the top. So we've got 53 points for the top one in Pope. If we say 15 for the bottom, that gives us 38 difference. We'll have a look at points per 90. So those that have sort of exceeded their natural position according to points are Donnarumma, Valdemarson, Perry, and a bit further down we have Vicario. And that's the same on points per million as well. It doesn't really change much on this chart. They all sort of come down in order. A bit like I've said on previous pods, it's the keeper. That's why we've done this one last, really. Keepers are sort of the last to be picked according to what budget or maybe a fixture you've got left. Have a quick look at the tiers. Nothing really overexciting here. So Dubravka, he's got two per game really. Rifts 1.5, Sells just over 1, and then the next are only sort of 1 per game. So not much ado about nothing. Now I'm just going to put this back to everybody, and we'll have a quick look at what I sent out on Patreon earlier this week, just to see briefly the overalls. Not going to go through it in too much detail because everybody's had a chance to have a look. This was more to have a look through it in sort of individual places, and this is the top of the chart. So Haaland top, Semenyo second, and then you sort of go from 54, Caicedo in third, down to Elliot Anderson 37 in 25th. So he's really got 75% of Caicedo scores, which over a 7 game week period is really neither here nor there. So something else we've been able to put together this year through the Transfer Planner stats is points per 90 with regard to tiers. So with passing, how many passes per 90 minutes played does a player manage to get on average? So can we work out then how likely they are to get a tier 3, tier 2 or tier 1? Same for tackles and shots and saves. So let's have a look first off at the passes. And this is the top 25 passes per player per 90. So top of the shop there is Tosin, who has averaged 80 passes per 90. Saliba is second with 78. Then we have Anderson, Zinchenko, Virgil, Chalobah, Pau Torres, Stones, Nico Gonzalez and Konza, all between 66 and 72. And then we have Rodri, Gvardiol, Achiampong, Ruben Diaz, Matheus Nunes, Dunk, Kanate, Rice, Curtis Jones, Gravenberch, Caicedo, Totti, Gomez, Mosquera, Mings and Van der Ven, all between 56 and 64. So those numbers sort of tell you something, but a bit like most statistics, they don't tell you everything. So a snapshot there for Gvardiol, really. He's played 4 games since he got into the Manchester City side. He played against Manchester United and he didn't get a tier at all. He had 50 passes that game. He played against Arsenal and he didn't get a tier in that game. He only had 24 passes. If you remember, that was a bit of a strange game where City really sat back, let Arsenal have a lot of the ball after they'd taken the lead, and then it was that glorious goal from Martinelli that settled the match in injury time with a draw. But then the final 2 games before this international break, he played against Burnley. He got a tier 2 with 69 passes. And then the weekend just gone, against Brentford, he got a tier 3 with 96. So if we take the Arsenal game out, then that leaves 215 passes in the other 3, an average of 71. So he would be getting on average against everybody else but Arsenal a tier 2. So these are the kind of numbers that we need to be looking at for other defenders, really. If Tosin gets his place back in the City side, in the Chelsea side, I think he's going to be fairly nailed for passing numbers. Saliba seems to be the best of the Arsenal players. He's on averaging over 75, so if you get him in your side and they keep a clean sheet, should be on for a 10-pointer. There's several there that are averaging to get tier 2s, so likes of Chalobah, reasonably cheap, but Virgil expensive. He's the pricey end. You've got Anderson, who's getting tiers, but as we saw earlier, isn't getting much else. Stones and Gonzalez, not guaranteed to be playing in the City side. And then you've got Villa, Konza and Pau. I mean, are they going to get enough clean sheets to go alongside them? That's the question. Then we've got the other guys that we talked about previously, the likes of Caicedo. He's just averaging into the 1 passing tier. Declan Rice again, he's averaging into one passing tier. Likes of Van der Ven as well, only just scraping him. So let's have a look at shots on target to see who's doing best on that. So interesting to note here, so per 90, nobody's getting a green tier at all. Nobody's over the 3. We've got Haaland, who I think is going to be a no-brainer in everybody's side. He's averaging over 2, and so is Callum Wilson. But Callum Wilson is not guaranteed to be playing for West Ham. And then there's several there that are averaging sort of between 1 and 2, so 1 tier point per 90. We have Cunha at 1.8, through Mateta, Calvert-Lewin, Bakwa, Jacob Murphy, Sesko, Eze, Estavo, Gordon, Semenyo, Gruder, Isidore, Marlon, Suchet, Dango, Kluivert, Gittins, Alcaraz, Gomez of Wolves, Anthony, who, even though he scored all those goals, is only getting 1 shot on target per 90. Wood and O'Reilly. I think that's the O'Reilly of Brighton. For tackles, so there's only one person here averaging a green tier, it's Florentino. And I've got to be honest, I'm not even sure I know who that is. Have a look here. Florentino, he's a Burnley midfielder. Okay, he's got 16 points in total, 9 of which are tackle points, and he's played less than 300 minutes. So, and then we have Arias, who, has left my team. Weefer, I think that's Diego Gomez of Brighton, Ugarte, Palinia, Longstaff, Timber, who's been doing well in the Arsenal team, Gonto, Veltman, Buemo, Caicedo, who's on the page again, same as passing, he's into the tackle tiers. That's where he's done well this year. Ait Nouri, Kamada, these are the guys that are now averaging only 1 tier point rather than 3 or 4. Sorry, 1 tier point rather than 2 or 3. Kamada, O'Reilly, Hugo Bueno, Mitchell, Jensen, Guessand, Chatucha, Alcaraz, another Gomez, another Wolves, Tete, Sessignon, and Fernandez. Not Bruno, it's Miguel, I think his name is, or Mateus, might be Mateus. So names to like on there is probably Palinia, maybe Timber, Caicedo. The guys that are only averaging in the yellow tier, we're probably not going to be saying too much about those, to be honest. And then saves. So we're only talking there for, again, nobody's in the green tiers. We're talking tier 2s for Dubravka and Marmadashvili, who's going to play, but he's not going to play forever. Becker will be back. And Trafford, who's already lost his place, Sells, Ruths, Vicario, Johnston, who's just got into the Wolves side, Darlow, who looks like he's just leaving the Leeds side, Lamans, who's just got into the United side, and Areola, who's forced his way back in at West Ham. So these are the kind of guys that we need to be looking at if you want to get your tiers. And it seems to me that the passing guys are the ones that are most likely to be consistent in the numbers, depending on opposition. Obviously, if you're playing Arsenal, you're not going to be doing so well. If you're playing Burnley or Brentford, you're probably going to be doing better. But the fixtures come around and go around. Shots. I mean, if the guy's scoring goals, he's getting an additional point for a shot on target with it anyway. Tackles, I think it's going to be your enabling type, certainly if it's doubled up with a passer like at Caicedo. And with your keeper, I think it's going to be, you pay your money, takes your choice, and it's probably going to be the last pick. So now we've had a look at the player stats for the previous 7 game weeks to see where it can help us looking to who's going to be in our post-overhaul teams. Let's have a look at the fixtures. So you can see on the screen here, fixtures have been set from now up until the end of November. Single game days, we have West Ham and Brentford on Monday, followed by West Ham and Leeds on Friday. So back-to-back double headers for West Ham. And as we saw on the stats, it looks like Jarrod Bowen is going to be a mainstay in many teams. And then a bit later on, we have another double header for Everton. They play Monday Night Football away at Sunderland on November the 3rd. And then on November the 24th, they play at Manchester United. So I think, yeah, they're away on both of those Monday Night Footballs. And you can see highlighted on the screen, we have fixture day 35, which is Sunday, November the 30th. That's the last one that's been set. But on Cloudy Sky Fantasy Football Show, we like to dig a bit further behind the curtain. So we might be able to get a bit of a heads up as to what's going to happen in early December. So on screen now, we can see the fixtures for Saturday 29th and Sunday the 30th. And then that following midweek is a set of Premier League fixtures. So there are some that can only be played or Wednesday or Thursday because one or both of the sides play an action on the Sunday. And if we flip that around, there are only 3 games that can be played on the Tuesday, where all of the participants are playing on the previous Saturday. So I think the fixtures are likely to be Bournemouth against Everton, Fulham against Manchester City, and Newcastle against Tottenham on the Tuesday. Then Wednesday or Thursday, I think we're going to have Arsenal v Brentford, Burnley v Palace, Leeds v Chelsea, Liverpool v Sunderland, and Wolves v Nottingham Forest. I think they're going to be on the Wednesday. And I think Sky are going to use a bit of licence to get Brighton against Aston Villa and Manchester United against West Ham on the Thursday, because they have this midweek set of rights now rather than Amazon or BT or TNT, which means that with their newfangled anything that's not played on a 3 p.m. Saturday gets a default match on Sunday 2 o'clock and Sky can show it, I think they're going to sort of play into their own hands rather than try and cut the noses off of other broadcasters. They'll actually help themselves by having a couple of games that can be played on a Thursday, which if we bring this across to Saturday, Sunday, Monday of the next week, can give them some fixtures on the Sunday as additional games and maybe even get something onto a Monday. Obviously, there's Champions League games the following midweek after this, so certain teams are playing on the Tuesday, so they can only play on the Saturday. But there's definitely going to be some leeway where we've got fixtures moved to the Sunday for additional bonus games for Sky. Those that watch their bang average 4 games showing at 2 o'clock this Sunday will realise that the game that was picked for Sky was actually Wolves v Brighton, and they ended up showing that on their lowest ranked channel, Sky Sports Mix, which you don't even need a sports subscription to be able to watch. So we've had a look at the fixtures. We know who the best players that we think we might need to get into this team. So next up, we're going to have a quick look and see if we can put 2 or 3 building blocks into an overhaul team that most people are going to have. It doesn't matter how you structure your team, you're going to have these guys in, and then see if you can work the rest around it. So we're going to start up front, and first name on the sheet is going to be Haaland. There he goes, slots in there. And second on the sheet, we're going to find point for Semenyo. Definitely going in. And if we look at defenders, we noticed that Saliba was top of the shop for passes. Then a bit further down, looking for Chalobah. He's going to play for Chelsea. They've got good fixtures coming up. He's going to go in. And that's how our team looks currently. We've got Haaland up front, Semenyo, Saliba, Chalobah. And then we're looking here at Sunday, the 19th of October. So a week on Sunday, we need to pick somebody who's going to be captain for one of those teams. Now, to me, it's between either Kudos or Salah. Tottenham have pretty tricky fixtures: Villa, Everton, Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal. But he's been scoring well. Liverpool have Man United, Brentford, Villa, and then they play Man City and Nottingham Forest. Then they've got a nicer run coming up. So I think I'll be minded to put Salah in. If he does nothing in the first two games, we can move him across to maybe a Saka for Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, Tottenham. Then look to come back to Liverpool later on. And maybe it won't be Salah, maybe it'll be somebody else. So let's put him in, Mo Salah. There he goes. And then we'd look to fixture days 22 and 23, the West Ham double up, and we're going to put in there Jared Bowen. So there are the first 6 names on the team sheet. At the back, we've got Saliba and Chalobah. In the middle of the park, we've got Semenyo. And up front, we've got Haaland, Salah and Bowen, which leaves us 39.2 million to fill the other 5 places up. So we're going to leave that there for now. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll be back, as I say, with Friday Night Live next week, where we'll go through sort of some player updates, see if we've had any more fixtures. They're due to be announced next week, but as I always say, the chances are probably not. We'll know what's happened with the players after the international breaks, injuries, etc. So there we go. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave it a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. If you want to see more of these stats and use the transfer planner, you'll find that over on patreon.com/Cloudy Sky Fantasy Football Show. In the meantime, enjoy the international football this week. England play Wales and then they play Latvia. And as I say, we'll be back next Friday with Friday Night Live. Cheers, everybody. Bye for now.